Today on our show, we've got guest Chris Pollard, who has just finished his book, Untangling the Golden Knot. Chris, we're excited to have you on, hear about what you wrote about in the book and some of the solutions you have for people. Why don't you give a brief background, introduce yourself, and tell us how the book came about?
Sure, will do. Thanks for having me. It's good to see you guys again. One of the core memories for me is seeing people accumulate wealth and then not know what to do with it, or save a lot of money as though it was going to protect them in life from something bad happening, and then the bad things still happen, right? So we had some beloved family members who would just save a lot of money, constantly live frugally, not spend money, and still die young, right? So it's like kind of a morbid and downer way to start the discussion. But when you see that starkly, and then I saw some clients who had a very enjoyable life, and I had two clients die at the same time, basically. One, it was like a tale of two cities, right? One had died with a lot of money and not used it to better their own life or the lives of people around them. And one was very engaged with other people, highly connected to community and friends and family, and using the money for like a greater purpose, even though it was for themselves as well.
I love the action items. Like it's not just here's the problems, it's the what do you do about it part. And when we were getting ready
Yeah.
to hit the record here, Chris, you had shared an analogy about knowing how a car works versus driving a car, and that I think resonates with the what do you do part. Could you share that? I would say it, but I can't remember exactly what you said.
Yeah, I mean, there's a big difference in knowing like how how money could make your life better and then actually doing something about it, right? So a lot of people will say, all right, we're going to accumulate money, and then the advisor will show a chart or a graph or Monte Carlo results or a cash flow plan or whatever it is and say, okay, we have a good financial plan. You're going to be fine. We say that, and then the client says, I don't feel fine. And the difference there is knowing how a car works is, oh, there's gears that turn and this thing could get you there, to, okay, let's get behind the wheel and let's start driving someplace, trusting that the car is going to work. So I think as planners in our mind, and then also as clients on the other side, we need to come to that middle point of we need to somewhat know how the car works, the mechanics of it, but we need to have the courage to get behind the wheel and go someplace with it.
So how do you help get people get behind the wheel of their money and actually use it? I see this all the time, Bridget. I suspect you do too. You've got this. I've done my own plan. I'm going to be fine. But then it's just weird, right?
Yeah.
Like part of the reason that I feel like I'm fine, a lot of our clients are fine, is because they're good at saving. Now suddenly you're not going to make any money the rest of your life and you're going
Yeah.
to start spending. Like, of course, that's why you do it. I mean, intelligently, I know that logically, but then spending money, like, wait a minute, that
Yeah.
does not compute, right?
Right. And I think one of the ways that we can talk about some of that switch from, okay, we're going to accumulate money to now we can spend it, is thinking about money about what it truly is, which is a store of value, right? You work and then your employer gives you money. So you provided value for the employer, or if you were self-employed, right? And then you get money from that. And then you can take that money and store it somewhere. And then eventually, as we're trying to grow money, and then we need to shift it to back into value, right? From a store of value back into value, which would be what do you want to do with your time and what do you want to do with yourself? I jokingly say to clients, nobody's asked you since elementary school, but what do you want to be when you grow up? Now that you're grown up, you're about to retire. You're there. Now what? That's kind of a one way of thinking about it. So instead of saying, oh, you could spend 200,000 a year, 100,000 a year, 50,000 a year from your investment, just telling someone a number is tends to be a little unhelpful. They need a little encouragement on what to spend it on. And if you're particularly nervous, you're going to tend to not spend those dollars. So if we can ask a client, all right, if you were to look at your life and look at a couple different areas, and you tried to make those things ideal, what would that look like for you? So you don't do anything numbers based yet. We'll get there later, but in the conversation, we're going to ask about a couple things. First is people. So who's in your family, who's in your friend group, if you're in a faith community, how are you involved in your local community, your neighborhood? So how do you build community with people, right? Who's around you? And if that were to be ideal when you're retired, what would that look like, right? If you feel like you're connected to your family and your friends, what would it take to do that? So somebody that's retiring will say, well, most of my friends are at work. This is a problem because all of a sudden their friend circle is going to go from a bunch of people to nobody, maybe their spouse. That's a lot of pressure to put on your spouse, by the way, to go from having multiple friends to only one friend, not good. And it's fairly particular to American males. It may be more like global as well, but many men build relationships at work and not outside of work. Women, in our culture in particular, tend to be better about building relationships both in and outside of work. So we'll see like a drop off in social engagement. So how can we encourage somebody? Okay, your friends are all at work. How can you maintain those relationships? And like, well, I should go to lunch with guys every, once a week or something, with my colleagues, even though I'm retired, they're not. Say, okay, so when we look later, when we look at your cash flow spending plan, your budget for retirement, we need to see on there weekly lunches with friends from work, right? So we're taking a store of value, the money you saved in retirement, and we're applying it to something else you value, which is spending time and having social connection, which, by the way, is probably the number one determinant in satisfaction in retirement and like enjoying thriving in retirement is social connection. So we're taking a store of value and turning it into something of value, right? That's actually we do. So that's kind of that reversal. So we'll do that with people, with places. Where do you live? Where do you want to visit? Things. What stuff do you need to enjoy retirement? Do you have hobbies? And we look at activities. How do you engage with people around you?
One of the things that I found, I really like what you're saying, is that sometimes as a financial advisor, if I give clients permission, that helps them.
Yeah.
Like I say, you can fly business class. And
Yeah.
they might say, oh, I can't possibly do that, but I could not get a flight with a connection. Like something like
Right.
that, like something, okay, I can handle that.
Yes.
So it seems like there's a baby step. Okay,
Yes.
you can, your project is to give away $200 a month to charity. That's what your
Yep.
project is for this, because you want to give money to charity, but you have this fear that's holding you back. This is my permission to
Yes.
do this. This is what I want you to do. And so it's interesting from my perspective that seems to actually really help clients. I don't have a problem spending. I'm not going to be that person, but,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you guys see this too. There's plenty of clients who kind of maybe spend too much. Maybe I'm just the only one that has that. Like, and I'm trying to tell them to stop spending, but I got a whole bunch of, super savers, and they're great clients because they've got plenty of money.
Yeah.
But I don't want them to wait either, because
Yes.
as they get older, you don't know what's going to happen. Their cognition, they might
Yeah.
be even less interested in spending than
Yes.
when they're younger. So it might be even
Yeah.
harder for them to change their habits than when they're.
Absolutely.
So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, one of the things that I encourage clients to do is when you are young and healthy, do what you want to do, because eventually your body will say you don't want to be in an airplane for 12 hours to go
Right.
visit XYZ country. Your body just won't
Right.
do it. And the desire to do that generally decreases. So if you have things that you've always wanted to do that require a more active person to do it, then you should do it while you're still active. And even if we front load expenses in retirement, it's pretty easy to skip a vacation when you're 87 years old and you don't really, you might be just want to, maybe you'll be a super energetic 87-year-old, but most of the 87-year-olds that I know tend to be a little more subdued in their energy level, right? So they might not want to just be doing international travel, walking on cobblestone streets, right? Like, so do it while you're young, and we could always skip a vacation in the future. I'd rather you do it now and then skip it later, right? Or defer. You could, defer if something's not going right in the portfolio, skip a vacation for 1 year and do it next year. It's not like you have to always do this or not do it. It's that black and white thinking, which is another core aspect of the book, is like black and white thinking really can mess with some of these spending dynamics. you can be flexible with your spending. And this year, I've always wanted to, go to Italy or something. Then go ahead and do it. We got the money to do it. Let's do it. What would that look like for you, right? So,
Well, here's another thing they came up with me yesterday with a client. They decided they're in their later 70s and they realize that it's harder to plan a year in advance for trips.
yeah,
Definitely not 2 years in advance because they don't know
right.
what's going to be going on. And so
Yeah.
they're doing spontaneous trips. They took a spontaneous trip to Egypt, with a month or two
Oh, wow.
notice. And it was great.
Yeah.
Usually you would plan that a year in advance, but I went on one of those trips and some of the people were falling apart, and so I thought that was a really interesting approach.
Yeah. And I think if we build the flexibility into their spending plan to be like, hey, we're going to plan ahead to spend this money. When you actually implement the spending is up to you. Be flexible with it, right? That flexibility rather than black and white, I must spend money by the state.
Right.
Let's not impose false deadlines on ourselves.
I also think that framing the 80s as a time of inactivity might be doing our clients a disservice because I think that it's more of a time of reflection. The people that I see doing more of life review, thinking about how it all fits together. And it can be a really high meaning time because you really can think. I saw this with my own father. He was really figuring out how all his life fit together. And so that's different. It's just a different kind of activity. And it takes, and it is less physically demanding generally, I think. But I don't like to say, I would say, let's talk about that as a separate cool thing instead of framing it as you're not going to want to, it's a Barco lounger and forget it and the remote and you're done.
Yeah. Right.
I was just going to say, Chris,
Sorry,
when you
ahead,
describe that, when do you want to skip a vacation? Do you want to do it when you're 62 or when you're 87, right? It's not that gray thinking, right? Not black and white. So much of our world is, well, I want to know exactly how it works. I'd love to do that, but we don't know. That's a really great visual. I really appreciate that.
Well, I also think that often we underestimate how much, just to be conservative, we underestimate how much portfolio is going to grow.
Yes.
And so that's one of the reasons why people, and I think that's the way to go. I don't think that's wrong.
Yeah.
But then again, in your 80s, you probably you're still going to probably have the same problem.
Yeah. And I just kind of circle back to, what are the things that I don't want to hit people over the head with existential dread, but what are the things that people tend to regret when they're going in their 80s or later in life and they're kind of crystallizing the story of their life? What will they regret? And it's usually relationship based, certain activities, sometimes career choices that's hard to undo later. But a lot of it is certain, I always wanted to do this, right? There is some of that. And a lot of it is about relationship connection. So if we can say, all right, what would be the things that you would do so that we have a fulfilled life. And when we look back on it, we feel like we made something out of it, right? And that's going to change over time and our perspective will change. And we have to have room for that perspective change, right? We have clients who, when their kids are young, are like, I'll never give money to my kids. They're never going to go to college, to, oh my God, I got to leave all my money to my grand. I've heard this shift in clients. When you work with clients for more than a decade, you'll start to hear those changes. So have room for those changes, but also have an eye for, okay, let's build flexibility into the plan, but also do the things that are stage appropriate, I'd say. So.
Hey, we could keep talking for forever about this. What a great topic, Chris. Thanks. We got to get things wrapped up here. Again, our guest today, Chris Pollard, author of the book Untangling the Golden Knot. We'll put a link to the purchase information in the show notes. Check it out to learn more about this great information. Chris, thanks so much. Maybe we'll have to do a follow-up episode and dig into a couple of the individual things here that we talked about. Again, so my name is John Shear. I run a fee-only financial planning practice here in Middleton, Wisconsin.
I'm Bridget Sullivan Mermel. I've got a family financial planning practice in Chicago, Illinois. We're all members of the Alliance of Comprehensive Planners, or acplanners.org. And so Chris, where are you located?
I'm in New York.
New York, upstate?
Yeah.
Okay, so Chris.
Yeah, I'm just outside of New York City.
So feel free to contact one of us, but you can check out acplanners.org if you're interested in in-person meetings with someone in your area.
Don't forget to hit that subscribe button.